If you've ever felt like you're doing everything right and still losing her attention, this isn't bad luck. It's because there's one truth she feels but will almost never say out loud. I'm going to speak to you the way I speak to my clients when the door is closed and the excuses are gone, not to shame you, not to flatter you, but to tell you what actually moves the needle in her mind. Most men are trained to chase signals, texts, attraction, chemistry, sex appeal. But what she really wants lives underneath all of that, in a place she often doesn't consciously understand herself. Here's the uncomfortable truth: she's not responding to what you do, she's responding to how she feels around you when nothing is happening. Men are taught that desire is created through action, planning dates, saying the right things, escalating confidently, showing value. Those things matter, but not for the reason you think. From a psychological perspective, attraction isn't built through performance. It's built through nervous system regulation. When she's with you, does her body feel calm, alert, open, or tense, uncertain, guarded? She won't tell you this because most women aren't taught to think this way. But her attraction grows when she feels emotionally safe without feeling bored. That balance is rare, and most men miss it because they're trying too hard to be impressive instead of being grounded. If she feels like she has to manage your emotions, reassure you, decode you, soften you, desire quietly drains. Not because you're weak, but because her subconscious shifts you from potential partner into emotional responsibility. Attraction doesn't survive there, it suffocates. On the other hand, if you're distant, unpredictable, or emotionally unavailable, she may feel a spike of chemistry, but not trust. That's the difference between short-term intensity and long-term desire. One excites her nervous system, the other relaxes it. What she truly wants is a man who can do both without trying. This is why being nice doesn't work the way you were promised. Niceness without emotional self-containment feels needy. Confidence without emotional attunement feels unsafe. She's unconsciously scanning for something deeper. Can you stay solid when she's uncertain? Can you stay present without chasing when she pulls back? Can you lead emotionally without controlling? She'll never sit you down and say, I need you to be emotionally regulated, self-directed, and attuned without over-investing. Instead, she'll say things like, I don't know, something feels off, or I just don't feel the spark anymore. That's not manipulation. That's language failing to describe instinct. Here's the part most men resist hearing. She wants to feel chosen without being chased, desired without being pressured, safe without being bored. And that only happens when a man has a strong internal center, when his sense of worth doesn't rise and fall with her mood, her texts, or her approval. You don't create attraction by proving yourself. You create it by being someone who doesn't need to. Here's where most men quietly lose their power, without ever realizing it. They start shaping themselves around her reactions. A delayed text makes them anxious. A cold tone makes them over-explain. A good date makes them fantasize about the future too early. From the outside, it looks like effort. From the inside of her psychology, it looks like instability. What she really wants, but will never admit, is to feel your emotional gravity without feeling pulled into your orbit. When a man's inner state depends on her validation, her body senses it before her mind does. Desire fades not because you did something wrong, but because you stopped being self-contained. Let me be precise. Women are highly attuned to emotional shifts. She notices when your energy changes after intimacy. She notices when your confidence dips after a small rejection. She notices when your tone becomes softer, faster, or more eager when you're afraid of losing her. And each time that happens, something subtle breaks: her ability to relax into desire. She doesn't want to be the source of your certainty. She wants to respond to it. This is why reassurance seeking kills attraction faster than almost anything else. Questions like, are we okay? Or, do you still like me? Aren't neutral. Psychologically, they transfer emotional leadership to her. Now she's regulating you instead of responding to you. And once that dynamic forms, it's very hard to reverse. What she wants is presence without pressure, interest without attachment, strength without emotional shutdown. That combination signals maturity, not dominance, not coldness, maturity. Most men think mystery is about withholding information. It's not. True mystery is emotional steadiness. When your reactions are predictable but not needy, she feels grounded around you. When you don't rush to define the relationship, but you also don't play games, her trust grows. When you don't punish her distance or reward her inconsistency, her nervous system stabilizes. Here's the paradox: the less you try to secure her, the safer she feels choosing you. She will never tell you that part of her attraction comes from watching how you handle uncertainty, not just hers. Life's, stress, delays, ambiguity, conflict. A man who stays centered during those moments signals something ancient and powerful. I can hold myself together. You don't have to hold me. That's not about being emotionless. It's about emotional ownership. You feel what you feel, but you don't outsource the responsibility for those feelings. This is why chasing clarity too early backfires. She's still deciding how she feels, and when you push for answers, her body interprets it as pressure. Pressure doesn't kill attraction instantly, it erodes it slowly. She becomes cautious, then distant, then unsure why she's unsure. What she truly wants is to feel like being with you adds calm to her life, not complexity. Like she can step into your world instead of being pulled into managing it. When a man understands that, everything changes. Not because he manipulates, but because he finally stops leaking his power. And that's when she starts leaning in, without being asked. There's a quiet moment when a woman decides how seriously she can desire you. It doesn't happen during the first date or the first kiss or even the first time you sleep together. It happens later when you disappoint her slightly or when she tests the edges of your boundaries without realizing she's doing it. She will never call it a test, but psychologically, it is, not to trap you, to locate you. What she's really watching is not whether you agree with her, but whether you disappear when there's friction. Most men think keeping the peace keeps attraction alive. In reality, avoiding tension kills it. Not explosive conflict, but honest, grounded resistance. From a female psychological lens, desire grows when she feels your no without feeling rejected by it. If your boundaries collapse the moment she pulls away, oversteps, or becomes emotionally inconsistent, she loses respect before she loses attraction. And respect is the spine of desire. Here's where men get confused. They believe boundaries mean being cold, rigid, or argumentative. That's not what she wants. She wants emotional firmness without punishment, calm strength, the ability to stay connected without surrendering yourself. When you tolerate things that quietly bother you just to keep her happy, your body holds the resentment, even if your mouth stays silent. She feels that incongruence. It creates emotional static. She can't relax because something doesn't match. And when a woman can't relax, she can't open. She'll never tell you this, but part of her attraction depends on knowing you won't lose yourself to keep her, that you won't bend your values for approval, that you can disagree without withdrawing love or becoming hostile. This is why men who stand their ground often feel polarizing to women, not because they're dominant, but because they're internally aligned. Their words match their energy. Their yes means yes. Their no means no. There's safety in that clarity. Another uncomfortable truth: emotional overavailability repels desire, not because caring is bad, but because unlimited access signals a lack of direction. She doesn't want to feel like your entire life rearranges around her mood. She wants to feel invited into a life that's already moving. Purpose is attractive not because it's impressive, but because it creates structure. And structure creates safety. When you have your own rhythms, standards, and priorities, she doesn't feel responsible for your fulfillment. That freedom is intoxicating. She's also watching how you repair, not just how you react. When tension arises, do you shut down? Do you chase? Or do you stay present, name what matters to you, and remain emotionally available without begging for resolution. That's the moment she decides whether desire deepens or dissolves. She wants to feel that being close to you won't cost her herself, but she also needs to know that being with her won't cost you yours. That balance is rare, and when she feels it, she doesn't need to be convinced. She chooses because her body finally trusts. By the time a woman fully desires a man, it rarely feels dramatic on the surface. There's no explosion, no sudden confession. Instead, there's a quiet shift in how she shows up. She softens. She listens more closely. She stops scanning for exits. And most men don't even notice the moment because they're still trying to do something. What she really wants at this stage is not effort, it's depth. Depth is what happens when a man stops trying to manage her perception of him and starts standing comfortably inside his own. When you're no longer performing confidence, but living from it. When your masculinity isn't loud, reactive, or fragile, but steady. She will never say this directly, but one of her deepest longings is to feel emotionally met without being emotionally chased, to feel seen without being dissected, to feel desired without being consumed. That's what allows her to relax into her feminine energy instead of staying guarded or hyper-independent. From a psychological standpoint, desire lasts when polarity is maintained. Not dominance over submission, but direction meeting openness, stability meeting emotion, presence meeting vulnerability. When both people feel free and anchored at the same time, attraction doesn't burn out. It matures. Most men sabotage this by either tightening control or loosening themselves completely. They either try to lock her down with certainty or they dissolve their boundaries to keep her close. Both come from fear. And fear is what she feels, not the words you say. She wants to trust that if she leans into you, you won't disappear and you won't collapse. That you can hold connection without clinging. That you can lead without forcing. That you can love without losing your center. This is the truth she'll never tell you. She's not looking for perfection. She's looking for emotional integrity, a man whose inner world makes sense, whose actions match his values, who doesn't need to be chosen to feel whole, but chooses her from that wholeness. When she feels that, commitment doesn't feel like a trap. It feels like relief. And here's the part that matters most. This isn't about tricks, tactics, or psychological leverage. It's about becoming someone whose presence feels like clarity instead of confusion, safety instead of tension, direction instead of drift. That's why self-improvement works, not as a performance, but as alignment. When you strengthen your body, your boundaries, your purpose, and your emotional self-regulation, women don't just notice, they feel it. And feelings drive choice. So here's the question I want you to sit with and answer honestly in the comments. In your last relationship or dating experience, did you lose her by chasing connection or by losing yourself? Write your answer below. Read what others are saying. You'll learn more there than you expect. If this spoke to something you felt but couldn't name, like the video, subscribe for deeper conversations like this and share it with a friend who needs to hear it before he learns the hard way.